Yep, watching the part 2. Now, when I'm recording this, I have not yet uploaded the part 1, but I'm going to cross my fingers and hope that you guys enjoyed it, because I really enjoyed part 1, and I just want to see how this mess continues. No, it's not really a mess. It's genuinely enjoyable, and potential histories, love and knowledge of tanks is very infectious. So it is an entertaining ride, even though I am completely stupid when it comes to tanks. I am not necessarily like a details person, I guess you could say, when it comes to history. I'm more of the I guess one way to define it would be the Tolkien-esque kind of history, where it's the broader sweeping changes and things like that. I mean, you even see that, like, I've talked about the thesis I wrote, which was kind of on the transitioning of the separate identities of Anglos and Saxons into a more unified idea of English. Um, was a thing in my thesis. Um, that kind of culture and their similarities and things, and then the changing a little bit over time. Um, but yeah, enough about me. Actually, not enough about me, not yet. Before we dive in, make sure you go and check out the links in the description box below. I would love to join the Discord and follow me over at Twitch. All right, the history and girls on Panzer Part 2. I think there's a third video because there's a movie or something. I'll probably watch that one too. But let's go ahead and dive right in.
I wanted to skip this one, but there's some tank stuff in it, so I couldn't do it.
Oh, is it a bad episode?
But the first half is all plot.
Oh, what's wrong with that?
You do, though, get the backstory of why Miho was being so cringy about tankery. At the last tournament she was in at her old school, she lost her team the match because she went to help some people not drown, and her family disowned her for it.
But I thought the thing was supposed to be safe and no one could die.
I personally think, in a sport that's supposedly safe as tankery, that if you see someone in real danger, you'd be commended to go help them, but apparently that doesn't apply. You need to...
Yeah, okay, we're on the same. This is why potential history and I are in love. That's such, like, none of you are gonna understand it because I didn't react to potential history for such a long time. It's such an old video now. There's a comment from potential history on one of the reactions I did to his video, and he said he loves me too. I think. I can't remember now. I hope I'm not paranoid. I hope I didn't dream that. Oh, that would be awkward. Be awkward. Anyways, yeah, we're on the same wavelength here.
To be in the way of shells that aren't going to hurt you. But in the flashback, the number on the turret of the Tiger tank she is in is 217, which is the turret number of tank ace Otto Carius, who was a Tiger tank commander in World War II. Then there's another 20 minutes of plot and practicing until the team goes looking for more tanks to beef up their numbers, and in the process they kind of explain the school aircraft carriers.
Why are we on a ship? To produce highly trained individuals capable of excelling in any field.
Miho and Hana find a 7...
I feel like if you're doing tankery, being on an aircraft carrier isn't the choice.
75mm KWK-40 L43 high-velocity cannon for the Panzer IV that will upgrade it from a D model to an F2 model.
I understand those words separately, not together.
In reality, this move was made in 1942 by the German army to move the Panzer IV from an infantry support role to an anti-tank role to take on the heavier Soviet vehicles. The History Club in Yukuri then find a French Char B tank in the river. Used by the French from 1936 to 1940, this tank made its name during the Battle for France in 1940, and being a very difficult obstacle for the German panzers to deal with. It did have some large shortcomings, namely its abysmal speed of 24 kilometers an hour, or 17 miles an hour, which was not suited for countering a war of movement that the Germans were waging. And the sign next to it when it is found may be a reference to that.
Maximum of 60mm of armor, 75mm and 47mm guns. Guess it's better than the Type 89.
Get fucking wrecked!
Also, Yukuri's my spirit animal.
That's the way to go, Montgomery.
Say, isn't that a little...
How about Guderian then?
They then journey into the ship to find the lost freshman team using a compass in an enclosed metal space, somehow.
Okay.
What the fuck?
And in the process find a Porsche Tiger, but more on that later.
How the fuck does that thing fit in there?
The episode closes with them completely skipping over the match against the Italians, because the Italians are never going to live down their World War II performance and is remembered only to be a meme in history. But they show a few of their tanks for a second.
Nice. I approve.
This episode begins with Katusha, the leader of the Russian team, meeting with Darjeeling, which may be a reference to Stalin and Churchill meeting in Moscow in 1942 to discuss the war. At this, Darjeeling spouts some more deep bullshit while Mini Stalin acts as Russian as she possibly can.
You go to Gulag.
The Nutcracker Suite by Tchaikovsky plays in the background. The Panzer IV is shown to have been upgraded and a crew is assigned to the Char B. This tank, though, is also understaffed, with a crew of 4 and only having 3, with a commander who also works as the loader and gunner for the 37mm in the turret, a loader for the 75mm in the hull, a driver who also aims and fires the 75mm in the hull, and a radio operator. On the Girls and Panzer wiki, they explained this by saying the commander also works the radio, and although the radio position on the Char B was right under the commander, the French added this extra man because the commander could not be expected to spend a lot of his time crouched on the floor when he was supposed to command the tank. French tank design is very strange.
The French are very strange.
Later, the student council meets with Miho and says this.
We've passed a latitude of 50 degrees north.
The 50th parallel is about where Russia starts on the map of the globe. You then see Miho plan for the match, where you hear her say,
Pravda's pretty good on the counterattack after all.
referencing the slew of successful counterattacks pulled off by the Red Army during the war. We then see Ori right before the match, where Miho mentions putting Winterkitten on their tank. These were track extensions put on Panzer III's and IV's tracks in the winter in Russia to help with traction in the snow, and were used widely on the Eastern Front. You then formally meet the Russian team. Their name Pravda is a reference to the official newspaper of the Soviet Communist Party published throughout the USSR, and their leader's name Katusha is a reference to a Soviet marching song from the time of the war. Katusha herself arrives in a truck armed with launchers for Katusha rockets, which were used to strike terror into German soldiers. I mean, just listen to them.
Yep.
Fuck that.
I agree.
We then get our first look at Pravda's tanks, including an IS-2, the Soviets' answer to the big cats that the Germans were producing, that when developed mid-war was a huge shock to the Wehrmacht when it debuted in 1944. Second, we see a KV-2, a heavy tank meant to be an offensive weapon to destroy concrete emplacements, but saw success against German panzers during the initial invasion of Russia in 1941. Seriously, go look up the battles the KV-2s were in. They're insane and what Wikipedia was meant for. I also made my own video on the KV-2 if you want to check it out.
Oh, I have not watched that one yet.
The rest of the team is composed of T-34s, which were the backbone of the Russian armored force in World War II. You see both T-34-76s, which were early war models, and T-34-85s, which were a mid-war upgrade that increased the turret size for a bigger cannon and another crew member so the commander could focus on commanding the tank and not do double duty. They then charge to an... and the show's rendition of the song Katusha, the aforementioned Russian marching song. Ori decides to attack head-on, and it goes about as well as expected, with the Char B having some trouble in what I imagine is a reference to its slow speed. There's also a Stalingrad reference, because it's required when you have a battle in the snow. After taking out a couple T-34s, Ori is surrounded in a pincer movement. I feel like I've seen this before.
Run.
And Ori retreats into a church with the Panzer IV bouncing shells that it probably shouldn't bounce. Katusha then asks for surrender under a white flag, and Monocle Girl quotes General McAuliffe at Bastogne.
Please surrender.
Got it!
But everybody's pretty bummed out about it. But then the student council informs everybody the school will be shut down if they lose the tournament, and everyone is even more bummed out. But you'll never guess who wins. Oh my god, maybe it's the main characters, I don't know. After a plot flashback, we see everyone is stuck in the church under the Russian siege, freezing. The Stalingrad references are very direct. Miho rallies everyone with a rousing speech, and they begin to plan their breakout. Katusha is seen sleeping in a Soviet RF-8 fan-driven snowmobile, as Nona sings the Cossack lullaby to her. The RF-8 was developed in 1942 and was often used in reconnaissance activities for the Red Army
That thing's fucking ridiculously cool.
and to support the ski troops. Miho sends cosplay girl Yukuri to do recon, and we are treated to this.
Marching in the snow and treading the ice. We can't tell what was a river or what was a road. The horse collapses, but we can't leave it behind. Everywhere we go, we're in the midst of the enemy.
Now what they are trying to sing sounds like this.
Oh.
Now, I guess this doesn't translate very well, but I would think you could at least, have the two of their voices sync up or something. I don't see why they took take one and were just like, yeah, that'll do. Anyways, this song, which roughly translates to Snowy March, is a Japanese marching song recounting a veteran's feelings after the battle of, I'm not even going to try to pronounce that, between the
You know, I'm able to pronounce, I feel like, Japanese fairly well. Nope.
Japanese Empire and the Chinese Empire in the First Sino-Japanese War. Also, Mako and one of the Helmet Girls do some recon to spot tanks, and this is said.
It's a Stalin, too.
A JS2.
Now, I always call this tank an IS-2, but it all comes down on how you pronounce Stalin's name. If you pronounce it like this, it's a JS-2. But if you pronounce it like this, which is closer to the Russian pronunciation, it's an IS-2.
Oh.
Neither are wrong, but I see people get into arguments over this all the time. Everyone gets back, and there are more Stalingrad references.
You know, I never knew that tank was named after Stalin. I just thought it was just the IS-2. Of course it's fucking named after Stalin. Duh.
Any more food? We didn't expect the situation, so we gave out the soup and only have crackers left.
We don't have anything left to eat.
Also, the History Club references the Hakoda Mountains incident, where in 1902, 193 men of the Imperial Japanese Army froze to death on an excursion, and it has since been observed as one of the worst mountaineering disasters in human history. Miho rallies the team with some cringe, and the plot armor covers the breakout. If only Paulus had plot armor.
You just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine.
Oride charges at Pravda, destroying a few T-34s in the process, provoking a chase. And the 38T goes ham before being knocked out.
Nice.
After things settle down, Yukuri runs into a tower and finds the enemy flag tank that quickly runs off. The M3 Lee is knocked out as Ori runs into and kills the KV-2. The Char B is killed, and after some chase, the Pravda flag tank is destroyed, winning Ori the match.
Woo!
Pravda is out, and Mini Stalin loses her composure faster than real Stalin when the Germans came knocking. Also, I would count a tank's track being shot out as a knockout in this sport, but plot. The student council plans for the next match, and decides to look for more tanks. We then see the Automotive Club has repaired the previously found Porsche Tiger, which in reality was the competing design to Henschel's that later went into production. It had a list of failings and was really a very poor tank, and the show references this. If you want to know more about the Porsche Tiger, I actually did a full video on it. Check it out in the link below if you're interested. Also, Yukuri is my spirit animal.
It pains you to call the tank, doesn't it? It might have a bad belt system design, but its 88mm cannon is really powerful.
The various teams then go looking for more tanks. The student council upgrades their 38T into a Hetzer, but in reality the Hetzer's development was not this simple. Despite the appearance, the Hetzer was not simply built on the existing 38T chassis design. It simply took advantage of the parts already being manufactured for the already existing medium tank. The Hetzer was wider, had a modified suspension, and an upgraded engine, just to name a few changes. Also, there is little to no evidence the name Hetzer was actually used by German crews, and is most likely a post-war name. The Germans just called it a Jagdpanzer 38T. With the modification, though, the student council team is still understaffed, still needing a loader. They also add side armor skirting to the Panzer IV hull and turret called Schürzen, which technically upgrades it to an H model. Although in the production runs for Panzer IV H's, there were various other changes made, such as the deletion of the side hull vision ports to ease production. The team then finds a Japanese Type 3 Chai Nu to add to the team. The Type 3 was an upgraded version of the Type 97 Chai Ha, incorporating a long 75mm gun and a larger turret ring, making it one of the largest tanks the Japanese built. But as with most Japanese tanks developed late in the war, it was retained for the defense of the home islands and never saw service.
Oh.
It's decided the Automotive Club will crew the Porsche Tiger, and that leaves this tank understaffed as well. with 4 crew needing 5, a commander, loader, gunner, driver, and radio operator. A new team is recruited for the Type 3, made up of 3 people who met online playing a tank game. What could that possibly be? This team creates the most understaffed tank crew so far, though, with 3 members needing 5. A commander, loader, gunner, driver, and radio operator. And if you're wondering the reason I harp on this, it's because the tanks from all the other schools are always seen being crewed to capacity. So this seems like a strange deliberate action to take away from the very spot-on historical accuracy of all the visuals in the show. Anyways, then there's some plot. The night before the match, all the teams hang out together. In the dub, you're treated to this gym.
We'll win!
And the freshman team is seen watching Kelly's Heroes, with one of the tiger scenes recreated scene for scene. The next day,
I have to have seen that movie, but I just can't remember it. Kelly's here. I watched, like, when I was really getting into history at a young age. There was a period of time where my dad and we would just watch like all the World War II movies. Like, it was like I was in like 5th grade. Pretty much it was just 4th and 5th grade. I was just watching them all. My pops. And yeah, like, Kelly's Heroes had to be one of them.
the teams arrive for the finals, and there's a full-blown tank convention going on. I would cover the references, but there are many, and I've covered a lot of them in the past. The British, Americans, and Russians come by to wish Ori good luck, with Mini Stalin telling Miho to
Crush Koromori Mine like Operation Bagration did!
Operation Bagration was a Soviet offensive launched on June 22, 1944 that utterly destroyed the German Army Group Center. In fact, destroyed might be an understatement. Army Group Center pretty much ceased to exist. We then see the enemy team, Koromori Mine, or the Germans. Miho mentions that the Germans
Will probably come attack us all at once the second the match starts.
which pretty much describes World War II in a nutshell, with a front-loaded German offensive that later gets bogged down into a attritional war they can't win.
Yeah.
The German team features mostly mid to late war tanks, and holy fuck, there's a lot of them, so strap in. First you see a Panzer IV. This tank destroyer, developed in 1943 and based on the chassis of a Panzer IV, mounted the same 75mm L-70 gun as the Panther in the latter third of its production run. Although fairly reliable and effective, only around 900 were produced. Second is a Panther. Rushed into service in 1943, this tank was very unreliable early in its production run, but as the war drug on, various improvements were made that eventually earned it the title of one of the best tanks of the war, with good armor and the aforementioned deadly gun.
Nice.
Next, a Panther, the tank destroyer variant of the Panther, mounting the 88mm L-70 gun of the Tiger II. Although used to great success, very few of these were built as well due to late war production problems. Next is the Germans' final fielded submission to the heavy tank competition with the Soviets, the Tiger II. First fielded in 1944,
Never heard of the Tiger tank. Never. What's a tank?
this
Never heard
tank,
of
meant to be Hitler's wonder weapon,
I don't know why
had a
I
less
decided to
than
make that
stellar
joke now.
performance in the field due to an underpowered engine and transmission. Then, a Tiger. The Tiger II's tank destroyer variant armed with a massive 128mm PaK-44 L-55 gun. This is also the heaviest vehicle fielded in the war, weighing in at nearly 72 tons. It, though, was also plunged with mechanical problems and made little impact as it debuted so late in the war, being fielded even after the Tiger II. Then there is a Ferdinand tank destroyer, the thing the Porsche Tiger later became. And for more than you want to know about this vehicle,
Did I watch the What Not to Do, the Ferdinand video? Can't remember.
check out the link below. Lastly, there is a Tiger I. This German heavy tank debuted in 1942 and was a direct response to the heavier tanks the Germans ran into in France and Russia. It has since become the poster child for German tanks in World War II due to its deadly reputation. Also, this Tiger has the number 212 on its turret, which is the turret number for German tank ace Michael Wittmann. The Germans attacked quickly through the forest, prompting this line,
They used the forest as a shortcut?
which is a reference to the German invasion of France, where the German army sidestepped the Maginot Line, attacking through the Ardennes. A dense
I feel like they should have expected that from the Germans, you know.
forest thought to be impassable
If these girls are a bunch of fucking history nerds and tank nerds, I feel like they should have expected that.
by motorized divisions. The Type 3 is knocked out almost immediately, probably in reference to its short service life. And the episode ends with a cliffhanger. With the Type 3 out, Ori retreats looking for a better position while releasing smoke to mask their movements. Eventually taking a position on a hill, the Germans follow. The Hetzer immobilizes the Panther and a Panther, but this does little to stop the attack. The Germans charge up the hill, and a few vehicles do better with the incline than they should. namely the Ferdinand, or Elephant, as this example is a late war refit model, and the Jagdtiger. Both had very underpowered drivetrains for their weight, which should give them a lot of trouble with the hill. Reports of Ferdinands at Kursk mention many vehicles being lost due to engine fires when they became overstressed ascending a hill to get to a firing position. And Jagdtigers were being lost left and right at the end of the war due to transmission overstressing issues. So this scene is kind of a stretch. The Hetzer bullies the Jagdpanther again.
Hooray. Please! Get the fuck off my tracks! God fucking damn!
And after a volley and some distraction by the Hetzer, Ori charges down the hill. Darjeeling says this,
They started using heavy tanks against Pravda, but it worked against them here.
which is a reference to the heavy tank arms race between the Soviet Union and Germany in World War II that ended up producing many of the tanks we see Kuromori Mine use in the show. The Tiger II throws a track, giving Ori time to redeploy. Then there's a river crossing scene that's too long. Yukuri is seen spotting using an EMR-36 rangefinder, a German stereoscopic rangefinder from World War II. Ori crosses a bridge and heads towards the city where it encounters a Panzer III. But the Panzer III leads them into the German team's mouse tank.
Damn, boy. Damn, boy, he's thick.
Damn.
Boy, that's a thick-ass boy. Damn.
The mouse was supposed to be the next step in the German heavy tank program, weighing 188 tons, crowning it the title of the world's largest super heavy tank, and packing the same gun as the Jagdtiger, with an additional coaxial 75mm cannon. This thing was meant to be a bunker on tracks, impervious to all anti-tank guns it came across. However, this thing was little more than a pipe dream, with only 2 prototypes built that never saw service. If it did somehow manage to see service, though, I think it would have just made nice target practice for Sturmovik pilots, as the thing was incredibly impractical and slow. In the perfect world of the show, though, it is quite the force to be reckoned with. The Char B attempts to kill it and is promptly destroyed.
What a fool you are. I'm a god. How can you kill a god?
The Stug is also killed as Ori retreats to the Germans advancing to the Panzer lead. Premium tier plot armor allows the mouse to be taken out, even though Ori probably could have just outrun and ignored it, and the German team makes it into the city. The Hetzer dies from damage, and the Lee takes out the Elephant with a shot to the rear, and this was kind of foreshadowed with the scene from Kelly's Heroes that the freshmen were watching in the previous episode. The Jagdtiger takes out the Lee right before falling into a ditch, and the Porsche Tiger blocks off the route for most of the German team to get to Miho, leaving one enemy Tiger in the Panzer IV, both of which are flag tanks, to duel it out one-on-one. The Porsche Tiger bounces a lot of shells that it probably wouldn't, especially at that range, before eventually being taken out. But it buys Miho enough time to have a Need for Speed-style chase with the enemy Tiger and eventually taking it out, winning Ori the match, even though the Ori flag tank was once again immobilized. Everyone celebrates, there's some plot, and the show ends with a parade. This part is just my thoughts on the show, so feel free to click away. Although the plot is predictable, the characters are kind of dumb at times, and I'm not an anime fan, I am extremely impressed at the historical detail put into this show. Not just the tanks, which are displayed perfectly to the smallest detail, even in that strange live-action thing, but in all the other aspects of the show. There are a bunch of things I didn't cover in the show, such as each school aircraft carrier representing a real one, Ori being based on the real town of Ori, Japan, and the various historical references made by the History Club that are so numerous I had to pick bigger ones because there was so much packed into the show itself. This show was clearly made by history fans for history fans, and it's honestly pretty awesome. I mean, the man himself worked on it, so what would you expect? But seriously, even if you dislike anime like I do, I would implore you to watch the series, even the movie. Also, if I can get all gay for a second, I am at a loss for words for all the support I've been getting. When I started this channel and this series...
Wait, did he make this video all the way back that far? Damn.
I honestly didn't think it would go anywhere, and the response has been overwhelming. So thank you so much, and I promise I will continue to try to make videos you will all like.
And that was the History on Girls on Panzer Part 2. I will probably watch the the movie. But yeah, or well, I'll watch his video on the movie. I don't know if I'll watch the series because I haven't really been. I just haven't also been watching TV like at all. Kind of just been watching YouTube stuff. I'm just my Critical Role, and then the rest of my time is spent writing. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember to hit that like button and subscribe for more, and I will see you guys in the next video. Peace.